We want you to document everything. My post from this morning here reminded me of another case of malicious compliance from that era. We, my coworker, Joe, and I, were in our senior year of college, so 2021 years old, when a new director of our IT department decided to audit our tickets. When he did, he found an alarming lack of documentation. To his credit, the vast majority of our tickets were closed with antivirus was uninstalled, reinstalled it, or drivers were out of date, updated them. Descriptions matching the effort earned when you paid student workers $5.15 an hour. Really, that was the precedent that had been set when I started there my freshman year. An email went out demanding more documentation before we closed any incidents. It was a fair request, to be honest, so we began to add more information. Instead of speakers weren't plugged in, we would put went to Professor so-and-so's office to troubleshoot the malfunctioning speakers and noticed the speaker power light wasn't on, while the power adapter was actually plugged into the wall. The other end of the power cord was not plugged into the speakers. Plugged it in. A few days later, a second email went out. We appreciate the additional information, but we really need everything documented, including times you worked on, the buildings you went to, etc. Everything? Okay. Joe and I began documenting all of our tickets as if we were in a fantasy epic. For example, an owl was dispatched on the morn of the 18th day in September to our barracks. It was cold this day. A chill had settled across the land. 2 magic 17 inches Dell Optiplex viewer portals in the land of Violette Hall had died and no amount of magic or medicine could restore them to life. At 9:24 on that morn, Sir Joseph Smithington and I, Lord Sawser of Reddit, began our trek across the barren wasteland with a carriage containing 2 new magic portals. It was a perilous journey. The sage wizard Professor Beck granted us access to the Violette and the 2 portals were replaced. Sir Joseph and I have brought the stricken portals back to the safety of the hardware department, and will begin rescue efforts at once. We believe the hard drives may be bad, and will begin the RMA process back to their divine creator if necessary. We had a lot of fun for roughly a week ago until during a presentation with other big wigs, the director pulled up one of our epics randomly, while other members in the meeting found it hilarious. I'm told the director felt humiliated. We were chastised quite a bit by the director, and our immediate boss, who is absolutely incredible, begged us to cool it so that he didn't have to hear the director complain about it anymore. I wasn't as creative when asked a similar thing from a toxic project manager, and I just filled in a lot of useless stuff. 20,140,909 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. After receiving a ticket through the Jira ticketing system, I read each section carefully, noting the date, the request, who had requested it, what they had requested, and went over my checklist to make sure that we had all the user required. The user is James Allen Smith. His title is Maintenance Operations Engineer, a title defined in our handbook as a person or persons, who is responsible for the operations maintenance of our subsystems, which includes, but is not inclusive of, all of the following, / cut and paste from handbook. Quote. 20,140,909.23 Eastern Daylight Saving Time. After spending research on my last entry, I called James on my Cisco VoIP 5200 phone, and spoke with him for exactly 15 minutes in accordance to the call length display. See attached screenshot from my mobile phone, an iPhone 2 model from home. He told me he wishes to be called Jim, which is a common nickname of James but also Jonathan and the sitcom star JMJ Bullock. most notably famous from the sitcom Too Close for Comfort, which aired on ABC from November 1980 to May of 1983 and also starred Ted Knight from The Mary Tyler Moore Show. I had links, references, and attachments. Each ticket took me an hour to write, and I started cheating by cutting and pasting pre-made chunks of stuff I had to reuse. My boss found them hilarious, but told me that the PM probably wasn't reading them anyway. And as my boss, he'd rather I spend less time researching 1980s sitcoms and fixing some sysadmin issues. I decided to test this theory with Jira comments of lorem ipsum dolor sit omet, consectetur audi pisking elit, here and there with random dates and stuff. Sure enough, the PM never mentioned it, although he dinged others when he thought they weren't documenting enough. That guy was fired. Jesus Christ, he was such an ass clown. I put, and there was much rejoicing, into a support ticket I handled at my last gig. My boss noticed it. Fortunately, he appreciated my sense of humor and applauded me for it at our next one-on-one meeting. I had to cover the customer service phones every once in a while for like 6 months after leaving customer service at my company. Moved departments. During that time, the CS team was asked to note call times and make notes about the calls so they could try to get a better handle on call times and customer needs. The project lasted about 6 months, and at the end I got a shout out for my help and also for my notes. The notes I remember best were something like, customer called for X, put customer on hold, but failed to find X. When I picked up the customer line again, all I heard was shuffling and random noise. Pretty sure the customer quietly died. Dead customer called back. Not dead. Quote. Phone rang. Answered. Sounded like a fax machine. Am not fax machine. Hung up. Phone rang. Answered. It sounded like the wind or possibly ghosts. I don't speak wind or ghost. Hung up. I wish I had thought of doing this. My hat is off to you, Lord Sawser of Reddit. Antivirus was uninstalled. Reinstalled it, or drivers were out of date. Updated them. That's what I write in the tickets I work on. It does the job quite well. If more information is needed for other techs to understand what was wrong, I will of course add information. Sometimes on a rare moon it's like 200 words, but mostly it's thr same as above. Issue solved by. Back in the late 90s, I worked on a help desk for a medical device manufacturer in Southern California. One of the most frequent issues we had was when a printer would lose its connection to the network. Like you, our ticket system required that we document what steps we took to remedy the situation, rather than type the same steps over and over again. I.e., instructed user to unplug the printer cable, plug it back in, turn printer off, turn back on, print test page. We simply called it Procedure 32. It worked like a charm. We even had people call up who'd say they had already done Procedure 32 inches before they called. So would we please send a desktop tech out? Our Tales from Tech Support would enjoy this story. Please post it there. 2. Love the writing. Keep it up. I had an internal auditing job over 40 years ago, and one of the things I wound up doing was helping the company's new divisions build or rebuild procedures that were a cluster of K. On my report to my boss, in the section about results, I once wrote, and it was good. My boss, who was the son of a clergyman, still laughed about it when I left the corporation 4 years later. As a front-end user, I once answered an internal customer satisfaction in much the same way. There was a lengthy description of wandering through the barren wastelands, finally culminating in a florid description of a sunshine-filled meadow of, basically, My ongoing and lengthy problem being solved. The supervisor loved it, but I slowed my roll after that. I understand that once is funny and it quickly goes downhill after that. Sadly and predictably, both the tech and supervisor are gone. I miss them both. And here I thought working in accordance with prophecies into a few tickets was satisfying. Well played, Lord Technomomser. What a great boss. I'm sure you made an otherwise boring meeting something worth remembering for everyone else forced to be there in the presentation. Bravo. Shit, I work for the largest company in our industry and our IT people will give answers like this without even doing the work. Captain's log. Stardate. Describe the propagation of electrons traveling down conductors for every keystroke. See if you can break the maximum record size for the database. This could have been prevented with a style guide. Here's an example of what we want. Instead of making staff guess what they wanted. Now the invoice I received recently makes more sense. It detailed repairs done at my workplace to a level of detail down to. We set up our ladder and inspected the area to be fixed. Then removed the ladder and laid it on the floor. We had a bit of a laugh at it at the time, but perhaps they also were executing a bit of MC. That fantasy epic documentation was frackin' hilarious. I was on my uni student exec in my third year. I was really busy with classes and the position I had didn't involve doing a huge amount, but I was expected to submit a report of what I'd done each month. As 2 lines about attending various meetings wasn't good enough, I started adding in tales of my hamster and recipes for cakes I'd bake to pad it out. Mine were the only reports that regularly got read by everyone. That's just petty and childish.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Eracast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.